I believe we're going to question time. I'll just give us order. I'll give you a couple of seconds to get to your spots. Senator Hume.
President, my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Under the legislation that the Albanese government and the Greens just voted for in the Senate right now, a new widow tax has just been legislated, which means that if a woman currently owns an investment property with her husband and her husband passes away, she will then become the sole owner but will no longer have access to a favourable CGT arrangement or negative gearing. This is the legislation that you just voted for, supported and applauded. Why is the Albanese government using the death of a spouse as a trigger to take away grandfathered capital gains tax and negative gearing treatment? And why should Australian women have to face higher taxes in their time of grief?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
President, and I thank Senator Hume for the question. She references the legislation that was just passed by this Senate, and I can confirm that that legislation will ensure that more Australians are able to buy their own home. It does deliver an additional tax cut to 13 million Australians, and I'm not surprised that Senator Hume stands when we talk about tax cuts.
Senator Hume.
Thank you, Madam President.
I'm sorry, Senator Hume. I'll just wait for silence. Senator Hume.
On relevance, my question was about a widow's tax that has just been voted for.
Thank you. The minister is being relevant, and I'll continue to listen closely. And if she isn't relevant, I'll draw her to the question.
Senator, thank you. I had 24 seconds in, and I appreciate that you don't like us talking about tax cuts for working people, Senator Hume. But that is the thing. What we on this side are very focused on, that these tax cuts will be delivered to working people, to 13 million Australians, and this ambitious change in our tax policies will ensure that more Australians are able to own their own home. In relation to the issues that were raised by the Senator, and I think Senator Minister Gallagher discussed yesterday, I can indicate the government does intend to address these issues in subsequent legislation.
So you just legislated a widow's tax.
Well, I would just make the point. It is not. We've been upfront about there being a set of tranches of changes to the tax arrangements, just as we have been clear that we have cut taxes for working Australians 5 times. 5 times. And what we know, what is striking about that is that every single one of those times you opposed it. You opposed it. So, Senator Hume, don't come in here with that fake outrage when you are the person that has led them to the opposition to cuts in the taxes of working people.
Order. Senator Hume, resume your seat. I can assure senators I am not having a question time where those on my left think it is your job to yell louder than the minister. The minister has an absolute right and should be given the same respect as the person asking the question. And if you can't sit in silence, leave the chamber. But I'm giving you a warning. I will name you today. It is not your job. This is not a football match. It's not your job to yell louder than the minister. Senator Hume, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. How insultingly smug. It's clear that the widow tax was actually a deliberate design feature of the Albanese government's heartless tax grab, along with your death tax.
Order.
It was either rushed and incompetent, or it was tricky and mean. Are you only allegedly planning to change these arrangements because you have been found out?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
Absolutely not. And, Senator Hume, I would remind you that it is under this government that many changes which have benefited women in particular have been passed, often without support from those on the other side. Whether it is the funding of—
Order. across the chamber. That was both sides of the chamber, Senator Cash and Senator Watt. I've asked you to listen in silence. Minister, please continue.
Whether it is the high wages for those industries which employ many Australian women, whether it's early childhood educators or aged care workers, the movement in the gender pay gap, which I know that many on your side, I think this was described as a useless statistic by Senator Canavan, but what it actually means, it's about the position. What this actually has to do, Senator Ruston, is about the position of women in Australia. And if you cared about the position of women in Australia, you would actually have supported some of these measures, but you do not. You do not.
Order.
You have not been supportive of the gender pay gap being closed or
Thank you,
improving.
Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Hume, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. How can the Australian people trust a government which today knowingly voted for a widow's tax as part of its broken promises and cash grab? Is it true or is it not true that the Prime Minister is planning to change his position, not to fix the widow's tax issue at all, but instead to force Australian women who are grieving to pay higher taxes?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Senator Cash, you're not answering the question. I've called the Minister. Minister Wong.
How can the Australian people trust an opposition that no less than 5 times has been opposed to tax cuts for working Australians? Let us just remember, it is this opposition who has tried to stand in the way of lower taxes for working Australians. Very clear. That is what those opposite have done, and this is not a new position because we remember that under Senator Hume, also known as the Senator—
Please resume your seat. Senator Hume.
Madam President, on relevance, I think it's more appropriate for the Leader of the Government and the Senate to apologise to those women rather than abuse them.
Senator Hume, that is not a point of order. Minister Wong, please resume.
Senator, Labor senators have worked to deliver lower taxes for 13 million Australians. 13 million Australians. You, Senator Hume, also known as the Senator for Higher Taxes, have not only today voted against lower taxes for working people, but went to the election wanting higher taxes for working people. So we all know where your priorities are.
Your time has expired. Senator O'Neill.
Thank you very much, President. And my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Labor senators understand the cost of living pressures Australians are facing, and we are acting to ease them. Today the Senate passed the Albanese Labor government's tax reforms, another step in delivering real change for millions of Australians. Can the Minister update the chamber on what these reforms mean for Australians?
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Minister Wong.
I thank Senator O'Neill for her question and commend her, along with all of her colleagues, for your steadfast support for working Australians, because the reforms that passed the Senate today deliver real change, deliver positive change for Australians. Labor is helping more people buy their own home. Labor is cutting income taxes for workers again and again, and we are better aligning the treatment of labour and asset income. And this is not just for today, it is for the future, because our changes will mean more first home buyers will come into the system. That is 75,000 more Australians owning their own home, and it will make the system fairer for the generations that follow. All part of a budget focused on relief, resilience and reform. A budget which is about delivering a better, fairer, simpler tax system. And the Albanese Labor government's 5 tax cuts will mean the average working Australian will be up to $2,800 a year better off every year from 2028. $2,800 a year better off. New and permanent income tax cuts for every Australian worker through the $250 Working Australians tax offset, and Australians can claim a $1,000 instant tax deduction with no receipts needed. Our changes to negative gearing, capital gains tax and trust don't impact the majority of people, but they will help fund tax relief for more than 13 million Australian workers. Now, we on this side under the pressure Australians are under, which is why it is so important that we reject the fake outrage of those opposite, those who offer anger, scare campaigns but no solutions, because this tax package is pro-worker, pro-aspiration, pro-investment, and it is all about delivering for all Australians.
Has expired. Senator O'Neill, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. And Minister, thank you for that answer and in outlining the ways the Albanese Labor government's tax reforms benefit Australian workers, but also first home buyers and small businesses. Why is it so important that we have delivered these changes?
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator O'Neill. And you're right. It's important these changes are delivered. It's important that they're delivered by the parliament now because Australians are under pressure and Australians do want change, and that is what this Labor government is delivering. And today the three right-wing parties, the Liberal Party, the National Party and One Nation, voted no. Again, voted no to better, fairer, simpler taxes. Voted no to helping more Australians buy their own home. Voted no to cutting income taxes for workers again and again. And you have to ask yourself, President, what do those opposites stand for? They don't even know themselves. They're not even sure who they want to stand for them. I mean, even this morning we hear reports that the Liberal leader is on, quote, borrowed time, and there are some even arguing for Mr Wilson as an option. Mr Wilson as an option. Well, let's just pause on that for a moment.
Thank you, Minister. Senator O'Neill, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Minister, for setting out how the Albanese Labor government reforms make for a simpler, fairer, better tax system, which will get more Australians into their first home and cut taxes for millions of workers. Can the minister outline whether anything stands in the way of the government's approach to delivering real cost of living relief for millions of Australians?
Minister Wong.
At a time of global instability, of serious challenges in the world and at home, Australians do want their representatives to be serious and to deliver for them. And that is why the government is working hard to do just that, to deliver tax cuts for 13 million Australians and to ensure that more people can buy their own home. But what do we see from those opposite? Well, we have the fake outrage from the Senator for Higher Taxes, also known as Senator Hume, who went to the last election promising higher taxes for hard-working Australians. And, of course, what the opposition's position is about, the opposition's outrage is about as real as Mr Wilson's hard-hitting doorstops on social media. Well, he will have to face some real questions if he does want to be a Liberal leader, and he'll have to come up with some actual answers, because right now those opposite don't have any. All they do is to seek to divide people and play Australians off against each other.
Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. This week, the Queensland Treasurer revealed that stamp duty revenues had been revised down in the wake of the federal budget because of the government's broken promises on capital gains tax and negative gearing. Why has the government imposed a tax grab on Australians based on a lie, and which now threatens the ability of state governments to properly fund our schools and hospitals?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Wong.
Senator, I would make a few points. The first point I'd make is, we are here to deliver for a federal Labor government and for working Australians, and that is what we have done. That is why we have supported a tax package which ensures that 13 million working Australians will receive another tax cut. And I would say to you, Senator, because you style yourself with your high vis as the champion of the working man, why? Please tell us why it is you don't think working people deserve a tax cut. because that is what you have done. Now, when it comes to
Minister Wong. Senator Canavan, you need to wait until I've called you. Senator Canavan.
Madam President, just on a point of order on relevance, the question went to state government revenues. The minister hasn't gone there at all.
Thank you, and the minister's being relevant to your question. Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Wong, please continue. Minister Watt.
The second question I'm asked about is the schools and hospitals. Well, it is this government which is delivering more funding to Australia's public schools and to Australian hospitals than any government in Australian history. Any government in Australian history. It is this government which has rolled out and delivered 137 urgent care clinics, providing bulk billed services to Australian families. It is this government. So I think we have a very clear record about the priority this side of politics the Labor government attaches to delivering for schools, for hospitals and for Medicare. So that is very clearly what we have been doing, whilst you have been opposing, Senator Canavan. Now,
Senator McDonald, come to order.
I'll take the interjection from Senator Hume, who has a go at me again, and I would say to you, your record demonstrates. You know, Senator, would you like to talk about Chinese spies? Do you want to talk about that? You want to start this debate? Why don't you talk about the Chinese spies and how single-handedly lost more votes for the coalition than any single person?
Thank you,
on
Minister.
that.
The time for answering has expired. Minister Wong. Senator O'Sullivan, I assume you're on a point of order, but the time has expired. I would remind the chamber across all sides to be respectful. Senator Canavan, first supplementary.
President, I might ask again about state government revenues because we went off on quite a few tangents then in that question. The New South Wales government's budget this week showed a shortfall of $5 billion over their forward estimates from reduced stamp duty revenue, which is in part due to the anxiety that the government's tax grab has created in property markets. They're in freefall. Will the government provide additional support to state governments to ensure that our schools, our hospitals and other state government services don't suffer as a result?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Well, Senator, this government has provided a great deal of support to state governments, particularly through the Finance Minister tells me, and I'm sure her advice is correct, more than any other government in Australian history. And so I think our, our record stands for itself. We are funding hospitals at a higher level than any previous government. We are funding schools at a higher level, and we are putting more money into Medicare and the delivery of urgent care clinics. So, Senator, I appreciate you want to stand up for the Queensland government. I wish you'd stood up for Queensland workers. Sorry, New South Wales. I apologise. No,
Order.
I thought he said Queensland in the earlier question. Thank you. I appreciate your assistance, Senator Cash. What I would say to you, Senator, is that maybe it would have been better to stand up for the workers in Queensland and in New South Wales and voted for a tax cut today.
Senator Canavan, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. The government recognised in its budget that the tax changes may force some small businesses to change their company structures, and the government is offering rollover relief from the imposition of federal taxes like capital gains tax for companies that make such changes. However, Minister, such structural changes often also trigger a stamp duty tax via state government laws. Will the government compensate businesses who face a state government tax bill from its tax grab, which are based on lies?
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Canavan. Well, my recollection is the Treasurer did flag in the budget, and the Finance Minister did flag in the budget papers the capacity for people to restructure their affairs, given the pending changes. I'm sure that those transitional issues, including the issue you addressed, will be addressed through that process.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Senator Waters.
Thanks very much, President. My question is to the Minister for the Environment, Senator Watt. Woodside's proposed Browse gas project would release 1.6 billion tonnes of climate pollution over its lifetime. the equivalent of 4 years of Australia's total current emissions. It's the carbon bomb to feed the North West Shelf and would threaten the pristine Scott Reef, pygmy blue whales and green turtles. New carbon attribution evidence shows that these emissions will directly contribute to mass coral bleaching events that each kill up to 30 million coral communities on the Great Barrier Reef. The evidence is clear. It doesn't matter where the gas is burned. The impact of climate change on nature must be considered. Minister, will you listen and commit to properly assessing Browse's massive climate impacts on our precious Great Barrier Reef?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Waters, for the question. As Senator Waters would be well aware, this project is currently subject to assessment under the Federal EPBC Act, just as it is currently under assessment under Western Australian law. So the project is right now being assessed by the Western Australian EPA and also by my department, soon to become the EPA, on the 1st of July, when, for the very first time in Australia's history, we will have a national EPA as a result of the Albanese Labor government's environmental reforms. The project is in the final EPBC decision stage, awaiting regulatory advice and information from NOPSEMA and additional information from the proponent. As a final decision has not been made on this project, it would not be appropriate to comment further. I'm surprised that Senator Waters is asking me to express an opinion on the future of this project, because she does remind us from time to time that she is a former environmental lawyer, and on that basis it would be a strange decision for a minister of the day to express an opinion on a project that is currently under assessment. That is a surefire way to make sure that the decision that is ultimately made is challenged in the courts, and I have every intention of complying with Australian environmental law when I conduct this assessment and approval decision.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Next month, the World Heritage Committee will be considering whether to include the Great Barrier Reef on the in danger list. Climate change is the biggest threat to the reef, yet this government has approved 36 fossil fuel projects and is now considering whether to add Browse to that list. People are watching what you, as Environment Minister, do and whether you choose to protect the reef or approve more oil, coal and gas. Which is it going to be?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Watt.
Well, I think we've all become familiar with the binary world that the Greens Party live in, where you can only do one thing or the other. You can do one thing or the other. What this government has said consistently is that we will always assess individual projects on their merits, and this government has a record of finding ways to support economic development while protecting the environment. We've done that repeatedly when it comes to individual project decisions, and that was, of course, the guiding principle that sat behind our EPBC reforms, which were about delivering stronger environmental protections and faster and simpler decisions. That is, of course, a principle that the Greens Party supported in agreeing to pass those reforms at the end of last year. Now, Senator Waters and her Greens colleagues do like to focus on coal and gas projects and what happens with them in terms of decisions. What they always fail to mention is that this government has approved over 140 renewable energy projects since coming to office, and we intend to approve a lot more than that.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
President, this week 10 Australians lodged a complaint with the UN Human Rights Committee, arguing that by approving massive fossil fuel projects, failing to consider climate impacts and exporting our pollution, the Labor government is breaching international human rights obligations. When will the government finally take its climate responsibility seriously and stop approving massive climate-wrecking fossil fuel projects?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Waters. Well, of course, Australian citizens are entitled to make those types of applications if they choose to. What the Australian government will do is comply with Australian law, and that's what we're doing in relation to the projects that Senator Waters has raised, as we have done with every single project that has been considered by me as minister or my predecessors as Environment Minister. In the previous question, Senator Waters also raised the status of the Great Barrier Reef. We've certainly been working very hard over the last few months to put before the World Heritage Committee the evidence that demonstrates that the Great Barrier Reef is the best managed coral reef anywhere in the world. It's why we have expended so much investment on the Great Barrier Reef since coming to power.
Senator Whish-Wilson.
It's why we've worked
Order.
very hard with the Queensland government.
Senator Whish-Wilson, I called order twice. I called your name and you still showed such disrespect towards me. Listen in silence or leave the chamber. Minister Watt, please continue.
So we've been very pleased to put before the World Heritage Committee the evidence about what we're doing to protect and restore the reef, including the recent changes we made to the EPBC reforms.
Has expired. Senator Sterle.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. After extensive consultation, the first stage of the Albanese Labor government's tax reform package has now passed the Senate, the most significant tax reform in a quarter of a century. It delivers a tax cut for over 13 million working Australians, helps small first home buyers get into the market and backs small businesses. What does this landmark package deliver for Australian workers, small businesses and the people trying to own their own home, Minister?
Thank you, Senator Sterle. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, President. I thank Senator Sterle for the question. I acknowledge Senator Sterle's dedicated his entire career to work on behalf of working people, and it's the support of all of those on this side of the chamber and in the other place that have put forward this legislative agenda, which passed the Senate just before question time today and saw that important tax reform package pass. This is a victory for workers, first home buyers and future generations. The bill that passed today will help ensure that aspiration and opportunity are the birthright of every Australian, not just some. Today we've locked in 2 more rounds of income tax cuts for millions of Australians, a fair go for first home buyers and a fairer tax system that better aligns the treatment of labour and asset income. This bill delivers on 3 objectives. It cuts taxes for every Australian worker again and again. It makes it easier for people to buy their first home, and it better aligns the tax treatment of income earned from wages with income earned from assets. The bill has 4 key elements that are central to the tax reform package: $250 working Australian tax offset for over 13 million Australian workers, a $1,000 instant tax deduction for workers. It reforms negative gearing to apply to new builds only from the 1st of July 2027 and returning the capital gains tax concession to its original intent by reintroducing cost-based indexation so that only real gains are taxed. So we're reforming the tax system for workers, businesses and future generations. And this is more assistance for working people from a government which cuts income taxes whenever we responsibly can. And we're now cutting income tax 5 times in 3 different ways.
Has expired. Senator Sterle, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. These reforms, as you said, are aimed at helping working people, first home buyers and small businesses. Who stands to benefit, and how has the Albanese Labor government's consultation shaped a fairer package delivered collaboratively and in the interest of all Australians?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Sterle for that question too. In relation to consultation and working with others, we were upfront in the budget that we were consulting on certain details of the reforms, including for small businesses and start-up businesses with a low-cost base. The government's additional amendments are all about providing more clarity, confidence and support for small business and more incentives for innovation. Senator Sterle asked who benefits. Well, all working Australians benefit, Senator Sterle. Income tax cuts for over 13 million workers. First home buyers. These reforms will help 75,000 homeowners get into the market. In relation to young people, Treasury's analysis found that over 90% of Australians would have been better off by the age of 30 had these tax reforms been in place from the year 2000, before factoring in housing affordability. And for small businesses, a range of concessions, including raising the threshold from 2 million to 10 million to ensure that all active small businesses can get.
Senator Sterle, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. And Minister, as you have said, this package delivers a tax cut for over 13 million working Australians. Now, Minister, did anything stand in the way of delivering this tax relief? And why will the Albanese Labor government always back lower taxes for working people?
Thank you, Senator Sterle. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Sterle for that question. Well, through the passage of this legislation today, we're another step closer to delivering our tax reforms for workers, home buyers and businesses. And we know that over that side of the chamber who all voted against tax cuts in the last term, and they're continuing that approach in this term, voting against tax cuts for working people and voting against sensible changes, sensible reforms to make the housing system work better for everybody. What they have done today in the way that they voted is to protect the status quo, to say that the housing system is working perfectly, that anyone who wants to buy a home can buy a home. And we on this side of the chamber know that that's not the case, and that's why we've been prepared to take this decision to reform the system and to make sure that younger Australians in particular can buy their own home without having to compete with investors who are getting concessional tax treatment to do so.
Senator O'Sullivan.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Morgan Stanley's chief economist has forecast property prices to decline by up to 10% due to tax changes and rate hikes. On Wednesday morning, the Housing Minister, Claire O'Neil, said Australia's falling house prices are due to a correction in the housing market. That's confronting news for the two-thirds of Australian households who own their own home or are paying a mortgage, many of whom will now have negative equity. Was it a deliberate effect of your housing policy to reduce the value of a family home?
Thank you, Senator O'Sullivan. Minister Wong.
Thank you, and thank you to the senator for the question. And as I've said previously, the Prime Minister and the Treasurer and the Finance Minister and others have said, our changes are about backing first home buyers and levelling the playing field. And the reality is we all know that house prices have increased. I think it's in the order of 400% since 2000, and we know from our engagement with so many Australians that it is so much harder for young Australians to get into the housing market. And we don't believe that status quo is acceptable, and that is why we've passed the reforms that we have. In relation to house prices, what I'd refer you to, Senator, is that the forecasts that were referenced in the budget papers were, indicated that house prices will continue to grow, and that the changes in the budget would mean that house prices would be 2% lower than they otherwise would have been. So obviously that is the Treasury's modelling, and that is the modelling is the basis on which the government considers these policy matters.
Thank you, Minister. Senator O'Sullivan, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. According to Roy Morgan, 1.19 million Australians are in mortgage stress, and 830,000 are in extreme stress after interest rates have risen 15 times under Labor. Many Australians have been forced to sell their homes, while auction clearance rates have fallen to their lowest level since the early days of the pandemic. Was this uncertainty a deliberate effect of your new taxes?
Thank you, Senator O'Sullivan. Minister Wong.
I think there's 2 points on that, Senator. The first is obviously we know the challenge inflation presents. We inherited very high inflation. We continue to work to do what we can to contribute to deal with the inflation challenges in our economy. The second point I would make, Senator, is that one of the ways in which you can deal with this and the cost of living pressure that people are under is to ensure that you provide tax cuts where you can. And so I would remind you that you and your colleagues voted against tax cuts for working Australians, the very working Australians that you purport to be representing by way of that question.
Thank you, Minister. Senator O'Sullivan, second supplementary.
Thank you, President.
Order. Senator O'Sullivan is on his feet. There needs to be order. Senator O'Sullivan.
Thanks, President. Rents have increased 24% since 2022. Your own budget papers admitted that because of your tax hikes, rents will increase. Former Treasury economist Peter Downs has warned the changes will increase rents by up to $2,000, significantly higher than the $2 a week increase claimed in the budget. Was higher rents for Australians a deliberate effect of your new taxes?
Thank you, Senator O'Sullivan. Minister Wong.
The policy objective is about making sure we can help more Australians enter the housing market, and that we have 75,000 more Australians able to own their own home. Because we on this side understand that the opportunities that most of us have had we should ensure we do what is required to enable those opportunities for the next generation of Australians. It's as simple as that. We don't think the status quo, where so many young Australians are locked out of the housing market, is appropriate. We don't think it's right. We don't think that is about having a fair go in this country. So this legislation, the objective of the tax changes that in relation to housing were about making sure that more Australians, more renters, have an opportunity to be homeowners. And again, I come back to this. If you're worried about cost of living, why'd you vote against tax cuts?
Thank you, Minister. Senator Walker.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry, Senator McCarthy. Yesterday, H5 bird flu was detected in my home state of South Australia, following earlier detections in Western Australia. Can the Minister update the Senate on the latest information available about these detections and outline how the Albanese Labor government is working with states and territories, including South Australia, and with industry to respond? Can the Minister also outline how the Albanese Labor government has supported states and territories to prepare for detections such as these, including through national coordination, surveillance, preparedness measures and broader biosecurity arrangements across Australia?
Thank you, Senator Walker. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Walker for the question. And like many in this place, we recognise the seriousness of the detection of H5 bird flu in wildlife, and we understand the concern in the community, particularly in her home state of South Australia and also in Western Australia, President. I want to reiterate that the Albanese Labor government has been preparing for this since we've come to government, and our response to these detections is swift and coordinated. As confirmed yesterday, there have now been 3 detections of H5 bird flu in migratory seabirds. 2 were located in remote Western Australia and 1 in South Australia. A further sample from Western Australia is undergoing testing by CSIRO, and updates will be provided as results become available. President, there remains no evidence of mass wildlife mortality, no evidence of infection in poultry or agriculture, and the risk to human health is low. With the global spread of H5, we have always been clear that we cannot prevent migratory birds from bringing the virus to our shores. That's why we've invested $113 million in preparedness as part of over $2 billion in strengthened biosecurity since coming to government. Our funding has made a difference on the ground across all states and territories to ensure Australia is well prepared for the arrival of H5 bird flu. National biosecurity response arrangements have been activated. States and territories are leading on-ground responses, including testing and surveillance, supported by the Commonwealth. Along with our technical experts, ministers have been in close and continuing contact with industry, states and territories to manage our response to these detections.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Walker, first supplementary.
Can the Minister outline how the Commonwealth is coordinating with states and territories and relevant agencies to ensure a consistent approach to surveillance, information sharing and response activities, including in relation to wildlife impacts and environmental considerations?
Thank you, Senator Walker. Minister McCarthy.
Thanks, Senator Walker. The national response to this issue has been comprehensive. As I mentioned earlier, national biosecurity response arrangements guide how the Commonwealth works with states and territories when we receive detections like these. States and territories are leading response activities on the ground, with Western Australia and with South Australia managing surveillance, testing and engagement with industry and local communities. The Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry is coordinating nationally, and Chief Veterinary Officers from every state and territory are meeting daily. The Consultative Committee on Emergency Animal Diseases has met multiple times, endorsed a national surveillance plan and brought together every jurisdiction, CSIRO, industry representatives and wildlife health bodies. Environment and wildlife health experts are part of this work, including monitoring for impacts on native species. This is what coordinated national action looks like.
Has expired. Senator Walker, second supplementary.
How does this response demonstrate Australia's broader national preparedness for H5 bird flu, including the systems, governance arrangements and investments in place to support a coordinated response across jurisdictions?
Thank you, Senator Walker. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. Senator, these detections show that our preparedness investments are working as intended. We said H5 bird flu was not a question of if, but when. And we acted on that assessment. In 2024, we established a dedicated whole-of-government task force across agriculture, environment, health and emergency management. We have run 6 national simulation exercises, so every jurisdiction knew their responsibilities before a single case was confirmed. Cost-sharing arrangements and governance frameworks were established and tested. Surveillance systems are now functioning as designed. Our $113 million investment has strengthened frontline capacity in every state and territory. Senator, this is what? Over $2 billion in biosecurity investment since coming to government looks like in practice.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whitton.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. The Prime Minister ruled out a coalition with the Greens, in his words, 385 times prior to the 2025 election. Quote, "I don't negotiate with the Greens," was one statement. Tough talk. Since the Prime Minister's commitment to his voters not to deal with the Greens, how many times has Labor provided the Greens with concessions or other benefits to pass legislation?
Thank you, Senator Whitton. Minister Wong.
The Prime Minister made very clear we would not enter any minority government with the Greens, and we won't. What we are in is a chamber where, to get our legislation through, unless we have the opposition behaving responsibly, we have to negotiate to get our legislation through. And we make no apology for making sure we negotiated to ensure that 13 million Australians got a tax cut. We make no apology for that, Senator, and we will continue to do that until and unless we have people in this chamber who are prepared to actually give a fair go to working people, which is central to what this government wishes to do.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whitton, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. A new party room, pushing oil and gas out of the streamlined EPBC pathways, and now delaying vital NDIS cuts to keep your coalition comrades' support on the worst tax hikes we've ever seen in generations. Will the Prime Minister come out and apologise to voters who were misled before the election, not realising that it would in fact be the Greens setting the agenda?
Thank you, Senator Whitton. Minister Watt. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Well, 2 points. First, this is a Labor agenda, and Labor has delivered 5 tax cuts for working people in the period that we've been in government, and we will continue to do what we can to address cost of living pressures that Australians are experiencing, whether it is making sure we support the minimum wage rises, making sure we support higher wages, particularly in the care industries, making sure we continue to support public education, the delivery of bulk billed services through urgent care clinics and elsewhere. And I would make the point, Senator, that your party has voted with the coalition on numerous occasions against cost of living measures. You have voted against industrial relations changes which are about protecting working people. And your leader said very clearly, I'm not anti the coalition. I hope we can work together. I hope we can work together.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Whitten, second supplementary.
This Labor government has clearly entered into a coalition in substance with the Greens. All of the deals are being done behind closed doors.
Order.
Deals that are trading a tax cut equivalent to a cup of coffee a week for government ownership interest of up to 47% of people's businesses. This Labor government is losing its base because it has abandoned them for the insane Greens party agenda. Will the Labor Party recommit now to its pre-election promise and stop making deals with the dirty Greens?
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Minister Wong.
Senator, you know, One Nation talks a big game about supporting Australians against the major parties, but your voting record demonstrates a different story, because when you've had the opportunity to support Australians, you have said no. You've said no to 5 rounds of tax cuts. You've said no to 5 consecutive increases in the minimum wage. That's about $12,000 a year more compared to when we came to office. Sorry, I'd withdraw that. Up $12,079 per year compared to when we came to office, and 137 urgent care clinics. You have also been opposed to that. What you are prepared to do is work with the coalition to stand in the way of Labor delivering to working people. And Senator Hanson, your leader, has made that very clear. I'm not anti the coalition. I hope that we can work together. I mean, the uni party, the right-wing parties, are those opposite. It is Liberals, Nationals, One Nations working together.
Senator De Liga.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Skills and Training, Senator Watt. The Albanese Labor government's signature free TAFE program is opening up pathways for hundreds of thousands of people to get qualified in jobs that communities rely on each day. Jobs like being a chippy, a sparky, an enrolled nurse or a childhood educator rely on the skills and training that TAFE provides. Can the Minister update the Senate on the progress of free TAFE enrolments and what impact this is having on the economy?
Minister Watt.
Thanks very much, Senator De Liga, who I know is a really strong supporter of those free TAFE programs in his home state of Tasmania. The Albanese government is backing apprentices and trainees, and we're setting them up for a great career. Right around the country, we're building pathways for Australians to get the skills they want to do the jobs that we need, like through free TAFE, where we're opening up pathways for hundreds of thousands of people to get qualified for jobs that communities rely on each and every day. Through the free TAFE program, we've seen 742,000 enrolments in just 3 years. This will keep on growing, including in construction courses and care work, because our government has made free TAFE permanent. Free TAFE construction courses have now seen more than 58,000 enrolments nationwide, helping our government build that pipeline of tradies that we need to build more homes for Australians. Another way is through our key apprenticeship program, which provides $10,000 in incentive payments for new apprentices in housing, construction and new energy industries, plus incentives for most employers too. We rolled out this program in July 2025, and since then more than 29,000 Australian apprentices have made their start in housing construction trades, backed by our incentive payments. From carpenters to plumbers and electricians, the Albanese Labor government is backing more Australians to kickstart their apprenticeship in housing construction and helping them through to the finish line too, with our $10,000 incentives. And one such apprentice is Nick, a first-year carpentry apprentice from my home state of Queensland, who's earning and learning thanks to our key apprenticeship program. Nick is one of 6,731 new housing construction apprentices in Queensland. Nick said he saw this carpentry apprenticeship as a pathway to setting himself up for the future in a job that is quite literally nation-building. And I hear the Shadow Minister piping up over there. Who can forget that first interview she did as the Shadow for Skills and Training, where she said she wanted to cut this program and take rights away from housing apprentices?
Thank you, Minister. Order. 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 Minister Wong.
Ask the Senator to withdraw that, please.
I didn't hear anything, Senator Wong, but I'm not even sure who you're referring to. So,
Senator Nampijinpa Price made an unparliamentary remark in relation to Minister Watt, and I'm requesting. Sorry, she's now saying it again, requesting that she withdraw.
Senator Nampijinka-Price, I didn't hear you make a unparliamentary remark, but in the interest of the chamber, I would ask that if you did, you withdraw, please.
I was talking about what you suggested I said,
Senator,
which wasn't.
Senator Nampijinka-Price. Senator Nampijinka-Price, when I order. No, order. There will be silence. Senator Nampijinka-Price, when I ask for withdrawals, I just want you to withdraw without making comment. So, no, I'm asking you to do it again, please.
I withdraw.
Thank you. Senator De Liga, first supplementary.
Thank you for that, and thanks, Minister. Having a pipeline of skilled tradies in the critically important housing construction sector is vital in ensuring there's more homes being built in communities across the country. What other programs is the Albanese Labor government investing in to get more skilled people building more homes?
Thank you, Senator De Liga. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. And I know Senator Nampijinka-Price is a bit sensitive about her voting record because she's already been a National and now she's a Liberal, and before long she's going to be a One Nation senator. So I understand the sensitivity, Senator Nampijinka-Price. Whether it's free TAFE or the Key Apprenticeship program, the Albanese Labor government is supporting the. You'll be able to say whatever you want when you're in One Nation. You haven't got long to wait. We all know you're going there. It's okay.
Minister Watt,
it's okay.
Minister Watt, I'm going to direct you back to the question. I'm also going to direct you to respond to the chair. Thank you.
President. Well, as I say, the Albanese government is supporting the next generation of tradies to get the skills they need, but of course not everyone in this chamber shares the same support of tradies that we do. Because like their position on cutting tradies' wages, raising tradies' taxes and scrapping tradies' conditions, the Liberal and One Nation parties and Senator Nampijinka-Price, when she's a One Nation senator, are on a unity ticket when it comes to axing free TAFE. They're happy to go to a worksite, whack on the high-vis vest and chase tradies' votes, but every time they have a chance to vote for tradies, they vote against them, including by voting against free TAFE.
Thank you, Minister. Senator De Liga, second supplementary.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I thought it was New England. But the Albanese Labor government is backing more Australians to become more qualified with the skills that we need, including in the care sector for more nurses and aged care workers. Minister, why is it important that the government presents a united front in their support in getting more Australians into work?
Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator De Liga. Well, care sector courses as well are important in free TAFE. They represent 1 in 4 free TAFE enrolments nationally, and more than 60% of all free TAFE enrolments are from women. The Albanese Labor government is all about building up our workers with the skills they need to get the job they want. And that, of course, is the complete opposite of what we're seeing happening on the other side of the chamber. Because instead of the Liberal Party building each other up, they are tearing each other down. Just today we see more reports that Liberal MPs are already saying their new opposition leader is on borrowed time. One Liberal went as far as saying this: "What's not immediately obvious is who's viable as an alternative." Guess what? Guess what? You perform like this and people become viable. So they haven't got a viable alternative, but one is going to become viable because of such a shocker of an opposition leader that Mr Taylor has become. We've been out there talking about the cuts and chaos from the Liberals and One Nation. It turns out it's the cuts from One Nation and the chaos of the Liberals after all. Cuts and chaos is not what we need.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Bragg.
Thank you very much. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Does the government want less private investment in Australia's housing market?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Bragg for the question. And the government wants as many houses built as possible, which is why the government has put in place, thrown $47 billion Australian housing plan, investing 8 times more than the coalition did in a decade in housing. And it is why the government has now successfully passed legislation through the Senate that it works to level the playing field for first home buyers by limiting negative gearing to new builds and by the reform of capital gains tax, which, as you and I have discussed on multiple occasions, Senator Bragg, will ensure that there are 75,000 more first home buyers over 10 years. It's why we're investing in $6.2 billion in local infrastructure for housing. Again, 50 times what the Coalition invested in enabling infrastructure, and why we have 5% deposit scheme helping more than 260,000 first home buyers, more than 4 times as many as the Coalition helped in government. It is why we have the Help to Buy shared equity, which is saving 40,000 workers up to 40% off the cost of their own home. It is why we have delivered 55,000 social and affordable homes when the Liberal Party in government built 373. So it is very clear, Senator, we want more investment in housing. We want more housing supply, which is why we have also, and we want to level the playing field for first home buyers, which is why we are pleased that the legislation has just passed the Senate, legislation which you voted against. And I again remind you, Senator Bragg, that you again have voted against tax cuts for working people. Tax cuts for working people. Obviously something you don't want support. You don't support.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Bragg, first supplementary.
Thank you for that answer very much. So is the minister aware that industry participants say that SMSFs can account for up to 30% of pre-sales in apartment developments?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Thank you. I assume that you I didn't hear some of the questions because of the interjection, but I assume you were talking about limited recourse borrowing arrangements. And I think you and I spoke about this yesterday or the day before, Senator, and I made the point that less than 10% of self-managed super funds have one of these arrangements for residential property, and of course existing arrangements will be unaffected. I think I may also have made the point that limited recourse borrowing arrangements are less than 1% of total residential property borrowing and less than 0.5% of new—
Please resume your seat. Senator Bragg.
Sorry, point of order on relevance. The question was very clear in seeking whether the minister was aware that industry says that up to 30% of new pre-sales can be supported by SMSFs.
Senator Bragg, the minister is being relevant to your question. Please continue, Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, I was giving you the percentages that I'm advised about total residential property borrowing and new residential borrowing, and I was also going to make the point that only about 4,000 new self-managed super fund borrowing arrangements occur each year on average. So I know you are in the— because you can't actually defend the position you have, you're interested in having another argument and trying to make this a much larger issue, then I think these statistics demonstrate that it is.
Senator Bragg, second supplementary.
If SMSFs are helping finance new housing, why is the government driving that investment out of the market?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Senator, as I said yesterday, these are a very small number of arrangements. The logic of them, of the objective of the amendment passed, is the protection of superannuation savings. People are still able to purchase. We are simply banning these particular borrowing arrangements. Now, I know, Senator, that you want to try and make this the issue because you want to try and avoid answering the question about why it is you don't want more first home owners over the next 10 years, and why you don't want 13 million Australians to be given a tax cut.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ciccone.
Oh, hello. Happy Thursday, everyone. Now, my question, President, is to the Minister for Industry and Innovation, Senator Ayres. Bring it home, mate. Now, a strong manufacturing industry, President, is key to Australia becoming more self-sufficient and less vulnerable to global supply chain vulnerabilities and pressures. What action is the Albanese Labor Government Minister undertaking to back in Australian businesses and strengthening our manufacturing industry?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Ayres.
Thank you, President. It has been a big week in the Australian Senate. A big week delivering real change for young people who want to get their first home. That's what this Senate has done. Not slogans, not Insta posts. real tax reform the hard road for Australians. And the pathway in manufacturing is just the same, delivering real change for workers, real change for industry, tax cut, and the people who stand in the way are just the same. We have the biggest pro-manufacturing package in Australian history from the Albanese government. It's to build a future economy that makes Australia stronger and more resilient and includes our regions and outer suburbs meaningfully in our economy. And it is delivering for Australia. 7,500 more manufacturing firms since 2022. Manufacturing exports up by 43%. Manufacturing investment up by 35%. Like real substance, not posturing. Now, I did watch with interest what the alternative position is on these questions, and that is self-indulgence and a race away from the centre. The Leader of the Nationals in the Senate, as opposed to the Leader of the Nationals who's in the Senate, Senator McKenzie, has spent her time not here in the Senate fighting for manufacturing jobs, but in London at some bizarre offbeat...
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Order. I'm waiting for order. Senator Scarr.
Point of order. There shouldn't be any reflection upon the absence of a senator from this place.
That's correct, Senator Scarr, but I don't think Minister Ayres actually referred to whether a senator was present or not. He just named. OK, well, if he did, then he shouldn't have done that. Minister Wong.
Well, I'd ask you to consider that ruling because I think if the senator is making clear through media where they are, it is a legitimate point. You're right, there should not be no adverse inference in circumstances where that is not a public matter, but if the senator is making clear where they are publicly, surely that's a matter of legitimate debate in the Senate.
Senator Wong, it isn't a long-held convention in this place, regardless of what might happen outside of this place, that we don't make reference. So, Senator Ayres, I don't think we normally ask people to withdraw, but I would ask you to withdraw.
Happy to withdraw.
Thank you. And please continue. Did you wish to continue? OK, you've finished. Senator Coney, order. 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 Senator Canavan, which part of order did you not understand? Senator Ciccone, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister, for that wonderful answer, and no wonder we call you the best industry minister this country has ever had. Now, I do anyway. Now, the Albanese government, as we know, is providing much-needed support to back Australian businesses facing an uncertain global environment. How is the Economic Resilience Program helping these Australian businesses manage the cost pressures and maintaining critical supply chains?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Ayres.
Thanks, Senator Ciccone. I think you've made my life more difficult than it necessarily needed to be. The Economic Resilience Program that we announced shortly after the conflict in the Middle East commenced is a good example of practical assistance that this government is providing. Since the program opened 8 weeks ago, more than $220 million in zero-interest loans has been approved for more than 240 firms impacted by the supply chain crisis, principally freight and logistics firms that have not immediately been able to pass diesel price rises on, predominantly small and medium businesses. That has kept Australia moving and kept essential supply chains moving. So while the Liberals and Nationals are focused on themselves and getting closer and closer to their partners in One Nation, this Albanese government has been delivering for blue-collar workers and for Australian manufacturing.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ciccone, second supplementary.
All right, last one. Here we go. Now, Minister, I'll be polite. Now, many businesses and I think many in the economy are starting to get confidence, and that is good to see, thanks to very strong and decisive action that has been taken by the Albanese government of late, and also for a period of time. But I want to ask you this, Minister. What are the alternative views on how to support Australia's manufacturing industry, something that I know you and I have a very strong and personal connection to?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Ayres.
Well, there's a difference between real action and cheap political slogans. A real difference between real support for businesses like the Mount Isa smelter or the Port Pirie lead smelter, the Hobart zinc smelter, the Whyalla steel, billions of dollars worth of support for the Boyne aluminium smelter, working hard in every industrial area, including, as Senator Colbeck points out, in north-east Tasmania. We have been working hard as a government with real businesses, and what do we see over here? Mr Hastie's Instaposts, and I don't want to reflect on whether or not people turn up here, but Instaposts are not a substitute for a complete lack of industrial policy. And all that Mr Hastie has contributed is imported ideas that, if implemented, would export Australian jobs. This is a party that has lost its way completely and doesn't really know anymore what it really stands for.
Thank you. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I ask that further questions be placed on notice.
Thank you.